rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. I got to be careful with what I say because apparently Judge Wild, he does the intelligent talk with Judge Wild. Intelligent talk, smart, snarkiness, whatever. Anyway, he has the Intelligent Talk channel on Rumble. And apparently he grabbed some of my audio from one of the shows that I had recently and cut it into something that, something else. He got my laughter. It's on the 12/16. So it's on 12/16. It's the Monday snark one. But anyway, so yeah, so there you go. I'm being turned into memes. Oh no. Okay. Well, anyway. You know, this whole thing with the budget, the American budget is and the government continuing resolution that came out. That's nothing to laugh about, folks. I'm just going to tell you right now, it is not something to laugh about. But first, before I get into that and before we get into anything else, I need to give a shout out to Landon. Hello, boy. How you doing? Give me a tail wag, Landon. All right. So there we go. We'll see if he does it. Anyway, okay. So let's go ahead and get things kicked off. We have tonight for our Pledge of Allegiance on deck is Bam. Bam is going to lead us in the pledge. So if you are of mind, please stand. Remove your hat if you're wearing one, and if not, well, you know, that's okay. Go ahead and put your hand over your heart and join in with Bam as she recites the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bam. Thank you for submitting that wonderful rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to hear your version of the Pledge of Allegiance here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing it in your style, and then all you need to do at that point is take the audio file, video file, whatever it is, attach it to an email, send it off to fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at americanperspective.online. And Buddy Weiser in the Rumble chat is on it. He's got the pledge, the email address right there. He's saying, please send your pledge to so on and so forth. So there we go. Yeah, if here, I wanted to test this anyway. There it is, right there. Send your pledge in to fans. There we go. All right, sweet, that worked. I've been trying to upgrade and move some things around in the background. You guys don't see it. Hopefully you don't see it, but there's some things that I've been doing with the program in terms of automating a few things, making my life a little easier down the road. So, for the road. And so things are just fantastic here for that. All right. Let's see. Okay. Let's get our headline promo going. And of course it is Wednesday. So that's for TGRN. Oh, you know what? Forget that. Back up. I gotta do this. Tonight, of course, is... Oh. I am just all discombobulated. I got so excited.
Down to business.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
There we go. It's Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. And for tonight's Whiskey Wednesday, Bonnie's going to love me. We are doing Four Roses single barrel. Yep, Four Roses single barrel. I'm a little over half of the way down in the bottle. I do have another backup bottle, though, sitting on the shelf, which is fantastic. Anyway, so there we are. And, of course, we drink it out of, tonight being True Grit Roots Network's setup. There it is. It's the True Grit Roots Network glass with the stones in the bottom. As 3 Chevy says, it takes stones to drink with whiskey. Of course, he kind of moved it around on me. Now he's saying it takes whiskey to drink with stones. But you know what? He sent me a meme or a picture of somebody. I don't know where this is. This is like a town. I've seen the backboard before, but it's like one of those what do you call it, one of those movable board or changeable boards, and they put sayings up on them and stuff. They got them all over, but this particular one seems to have a lot of sayings that has a lot of sayings that go along with it. And in this particular one, it said, "My relationship with whiskey is on the rocks." Yeah, well, my relationship with whiskey is on the stones. There we go. Yeah, all right. The requisite swallow. Here we go. Whew, hitting 2 in it. Wow. All right. Now we'll go back to that scene where I'm doing all my things. All right. So now we can discuss TGRN. TGRN.net, True Grit Roots Network. Like I just said, TGRN.net is our home on the web. You can go to there, and you can listen directly from the website, or you can download our app, or if you already have the Live 365 Odyssey, that's AUDACY, or the iHeartRadio apps on your phone, you can find us in their digital their catalog of digital radio stations. We show up there. Tonight, I want to tell you a little bit about one of our premier on-air personalities and his show. This is Big Daddy Ray, and he brings Blues Therapy Radio to the air. Blues Therapy Radio plays blues you need to hear. We include new releases from all your favorites as well as classics. But we also bring music that you might not otherwise ever hear. From regional favorites around the USA to music from artists from many different countries. Blues Therapy Radio is a blues rock show, but we aren't penned in by that description alone. Try it once and you'll be back. This is an award-winning blues show from a Hall of Fame DJ. Blues Therapy Radio airs Tuesday, 10 p.m. Central Time, with an encore presentation on Sunday at 7 p.m. Central Time. That's Blues Therapy Radio on TGRN Blues at TGRN.net. And don't forget that come January, blues will make way for blues rock, headlined by a well-known blues rock artist. It will become a signature channel, and that's coming in January of 2025. I'm not exactly sure what the date will be, but it's sometime in the month of January. So check us out at tgrn.net. That's True Grit Roots Network, based out of Austin, Texas. All right, we got that out of the way. Whew. Not that that's a big, it is a big deal, but anyway. I don't know if anybody saw this or heard this, but yes, Donald Trump has now officially been confirmed. His victory is in the books, officially in the books. The Electoral College met, and they all voted to officially confirm Donald Trump as president of the United States starting in 2025. Now, that being said, he also won the popular vote. He picked up roughly, I think it's 77 point something million, 77.2 million votes compared to Harris's 75 million votes. Donald Trump won 312 electoral votes, while Vice President Kamala Harris only took 226 of them. And by the way, in case you didn't know, a candidate needs 270. So the electoral system smacked the crap out of Vice President Kamala Harris. Thank God. I don't think I would have been able to handle another 4 years with a lunatic leftist Democrat Marxist at the helm. Oh my gosh. Anyway. So that happened today. It is now officially over. The election is in the books. The certification, of course, will happen coming up in the first week in January. I'm not sure if it's exactly on January 6th or not, but it will be coming up. And that certification process will take care of it. But at least now it's more official than anything else than it was before. Because, again, they don't vote. I mean, we vote on November 5th, okay? We vote on November 5th, but it doesn't become official until the Electoral College meets. And by college, I don't mean college as in higher education, college as in a group of individuals. But until the Electoral College meets and makes it official. And so now what's going to happen is the governors of the states will go and they'll issue their certificates. The certification, they'll get the slates of electors taken care of. All of that stuff is all taken care of. And the certificates will be then transmitted to the Congress. And the Congress will go through the formal process, which, again, a lot of people believe that process is, can or, basically that electoral process needs to be certified at Congress in the next year. And so looking forward to that happening. And I believe, I'm not entirely sure if it always happens on January 6th, but I'm sure it's coming up. It's in that first week. So anyway, all right. Well, there is some more people who are waking up to the fact that our government is just absolutely horrible right now. And by horrible, I mean out of control, and so on and so forth. So what's happening here, this in the Daily Fetched, anti-Trump D.C. residents are in shock after DOGE, that's the Department of Government Efficiency that essentially has been proposed by the newly elected president, of course, run by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. But apparently they went out and presented a Fox News, interviewed some local residents in Washington, D.C., and they were interviewing them about government spending, and many of them appeared that they were totally unaware of how the money was being spent. I don't understand how anybody really paying attention should be paying attention to this crap. I mean, honestly. So, yeah. Anyway, here is the video of that event. Let's take a listen.
Fans of Doge, but when the Fox News at Night team asked them about government spending tonight, we got some revealing answers.
Do you think the government spends too much money?
Of course. Yeah. Well, by definition, right?
Do you think the government spends too much money?
That's a loaded question.
The government recently spent $750K to study whether if it was one small step for man or one small step for a man, the moon landing. How does that make you feel?
I would wonder how in the world they spent that money.
Stupid.
Good use of your taxpayer money?
No, absolutely not.
I mean, Aside from whether they should have spent it, how do you spend $750,000 on that question?
$1 million to study if cocaine makes Japanese quail more sexually promiscuous.
Quail the birds? Absolutely not. No, they're not doing that.
Stupid.
Why not? Who cares?
$100K to study if tequila or gin makes sunfish more aggressive.
Sunfish. Wow.
Who cares? It's $100K compared to the what? How much is our military spending on?
Good use of taxpayer dollars?
Not a good use of my money.
So, apparently, some of those people in D.C., in which, by the way, for most of you out there, D.C. is a enclave of Democrat leftist lunatics, for sure. But anyway, just to give you kind of a background on the whole thing. Again, I'll tell you the question. I don't know if anybody caught this, but the Fox interviewer was asking one resident about the government spending $750,000. Yes, that's right. $750,000 on essentially how to determine the question whether or not the quote on the moon back in 1969 was one small step for man or one small step for a man. Seriously, $750,000 just to determine whether or not somebody had an A in the. I mean, this is exactly what Doge is supposed to be doing: is getting rid of bullshit like this. And they had he asked about $100,000 to determine if tequila or gin makes sunfish more aggressive, or spending $1 million, by the way, $1 million on whether or not cocaine makes quail a little more promiscuous. Yeah. You want to talk about government and government spending and efficiency. Now, keep in mind, too, folks, keep in mind, on based on all of that, all right, that's our tax dollars. Government doesn't make any money. Well, they print it, but they don't make any money. And they are spending it on bull crap that, really? I mean, what kind of scientific or social or any kind of benefit is it to determine whether or not tequila or gin makes sunfish more aggressive? I mean, really? Well, this is exactly why the government of the Department of Government Efficiency has been put together. This is why. This is exactly why. Now, there's some more to this, because apparently in an X post, Doge broke down some other figures. The Department of Education spent over $1 billion, yes, that's billion with a B, promoting DEI in America's schools, according to Doge. Below is the breakdown of that. They spent $489,883,797 on race-based hiring. They spent $343,337,286 was spent on DEI programming. Really? And $169,301,221 on DEI mental health initiatives. That's what the Department of Education was spending on. Now, I'm going to remind you, there are several enclaves within the United States, especially those in Baltimore and Chicago. I'm just pulling those two because that's where the reports came from. You'll recall, I talked about this a while ago. Those enclaves of Democrat-controlled cities have classes, full classes, not individuals, but full freaking classes of people who cannot pass their grade level exams for reading, writing, well, not writing, but reading, well, actually writing too probably, but for reading and math in particular, they can't even pass grade level exams for those. The entire student body. I mean, and they're spending it on all of this DEI crap. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a whole bunch of bunk. I mean, you want to talk about this is why we're 36 trillion dollars in debt because of BS programs and BS crap like this. Okay? This is part of the reason why. Well, why do I bring all this up? I mean, first of all, it is kind of interesting, but it segues nicely into the next subject, which is essentially that Congress, Congress apparently failed to pass 12 appropriations bills in order to keep the government running back in September. Now, the reason why they lost their ability to pass these permanent bills on time had a lot to do with the fact that, oh my gosh, there was an election and we had to take a break. Yeah. Really? I mean, so anyway, now they're coming down. Now, this was back in back in September was when they should have gone and passed a lot of these bills. Well, they didn't. They didn't do their jobs. Okay, they did not do their fundamental jobs, which is making sure that the government itself is funded. So now they're in an emergency situation. They have to pass a continuing resolution by Friday. Yes, by Friday. 2 days away. Friday, in order to make sure that the government doesn't shut down. Now, what they ended up doing, for those of you that don't understand, continuing resolutions are basically what they should be. There's a big difference between what they should be and what they do with this. But what they should be is essentially extensions of existing funding. That's it. However, that isn't exactly what is going on with the government right now. Because of the fact, and let me read, and this is supposedly a bipartisan bill, meaning both Democrats and Republicans have agreed to this. And they're essentially punting on the issue of permanent government, permanent funding, into the incoming 119th Congress, which, by the way, is the one that convenes in January. All right. And that's the point of the continuing resolution. It's to keep government funding at current levels and hedging off a government shutdown that is supposed to begin on December 21st at midnight. So, extending the deadline to March 14th, the proposed CR, which, by the way, was 1,547 pages. Wait, what? They have over 1,500 pages on this. It includes some of the following: $100 billion in disaster relief for the aftermath of the hurricanes in the South. Wait a minute, I thought FEMA had money to be able to handle this. Oh, wait a minute, that's right. That's right. Alejandro Mayorkas said FEMA doesn't have the money, but then retracted that and said that, oh, no, we have the money. Yeah, don't believe them when they say it. Environmental provisions. Hold on to that one. The Second Chance Reauthorization Act. There are some veterans measures, foreign affairs related legislation, and the Hotel Fees Transparency Act. Now, wait a minute. Wait, why are they passing authorization acts and transparency acts? Those are acts that are added. They're being added? Oh, yeah. This continuing resolution is not a continuing resolution in the idea of, hey, we're just going to keep government funding at its current levels. That's not what they're doing. They've turned this into a shadow of an omnibus bill. Now, somebody might ask, what the hell is an omnibus bill? An omnibus bill is essentially a bill that is packed with so much freaking pork, okay, that, and it essentially goes into the Nancy Pelosi idea of, well, we have to pass it in order to find out what's in it. Yeah. Now, the CR also is including a one-year extension of a farm bill that consists of various initiatives, including food nutrition programs in schools, crop insurance, disaster assistance. The bill comes in at a top-line price of $10 billion for that farm initiative, and then that is below the threshold of what some in the industry have been requesting. Okay. Now, this thing, of course, usually gets extended for 5 years, but this one is only extending it for roughly 1 year. The bill is also wrapping in new legislation designed to restrict outgoing U.S. investments into China. It's designating $150 million to allow the president to hire officials in the Department of the Treasury and the Department of Commerce to determine which types of investments should be restricted in the interest of national security and trade competitiveness. In other words, it includes $150 million to grow government bigger. Now, while that bill usually gets bipartisan support, a point of contention surrounding it is the GOP's desire to strengthen requirements for recipients of food stamps, supplemental called SNAP, supplemental nutrition assistance programs. Democrats oppose to making changes to this. Okay. Now, the CR also includes, get this, a measure to transfer control of the RFK Memorial Stadium in the D.C. area from the federal government over to the city, I think, because the site could be, not is, could be the new home for the NFL's Washington Commanders. Now, that particular legislation overwhelmingly passed the House in February, but it's been stuck in the Senate amid objections from Democrat Senators Ben Cardin and Chris Van Hollen, both from Maryland. Now, there is a 72-hour rule that the House put in when Johnson became the Speaker of the House. And essentially, that House rule was agreed to at the start of the 118th Congress, which essentially allows leadership to allow 72 hours for lawmakers to read the full 1,500 plus page document. Okay. And allow them to read it before they can bring it to a vote. Now, during a press conference yesterday, Johnson indicated that it was his intention to stick to that 72-hour rule, by the way. However, that potentially means that the House couldn't actually take a vote on this package until just hours before the start of the shutdown, because they just presented it today. Do you see how ineffective government actually is? And you sit there and you wonder why people like myself are going, we need to shrink government. We need to get government closed down. We need to make that as small, only to what is necessary, in line with what the founders intended. This is one reason why. Now, Senate Minority Whip John Thune, who is the incoming majority leader, says that he believes that the Senate may need to actually work into the weekend, oh, boo-hoo, to pass this legislation because the House may not give them the bill. They may not act on it in time to be able to do it. Yeah. He says, but who knows? Maybe the Christmas spirit will kick in. Yeah. These people, I'm just telling you. Anyway. Well, there are some people who are literally responding negatively to the whole thing. One of them is, of course, Senator John Kennedy. He told reporters on December 16th that the CR is looking more and more like an omnibus in the sense that we don't know what's in it. He said they need to saddle up and ride and get this thing put together and keep it to a bare minimum, in my opinion. Burchett, who is a Republican representative from Tennessee, he said this is not what America voted for. And this is a post that he put on social media platform X before the release. Now, Johnson, of course, resisted comparisons to the Christmas omnibus during a press conference on the 17th. He said, this is not an omnibus, okay? This is a small CR that we've had to add things that were out of our control. Yeah. Okay, again, a continuing resolution, by its very nature, should be just the minimum that is allowed to keep the government operating while you set up a new budget. That's essentially what needs to happen here. But no! All right, I'm just going to say this. I'm going to say it for everybody. Johnson was supposed to be a conservative. He's not. He is bending over backwards like he has done in the past for others in the group. He is not the staunch conservative that we were hoping for. Honestly, he is no different than Kevin McCarthy was before him. Now, there's a long congressional recess coming up in the final weeks leading up to the 2024 election. That was why they didn't pass the 12 required appropriations bills before the December 20th deadline, was because of the fact that they had a long congressional recess in the final weeks, including the entire month of October. I'm sorry, but if you guys don't finish your jobs, I mean, okay, let's just look at this on a practical standpoint, all right? And I'm sorry, I'm going to kind of go off here a little bit on this. But let's look at this from a practical standpoint. If I am on a project for a customer, and of course, in this particular scenario, the customer is the American people, okay? But I'm on a project for a customer. I can't just like walk in and look at the customer and say, you know what, folks, I'm going to take the entire month of October off, even though the deadline is coming up. And by the way, I can't go past that deadline because if I don't, then the project ends funding or whatever. I sit here and I tell my customer, hey, I'm going to take the entire month of October off, even though I need to pass these other or do these other tasks, these 12 other tasks ahead of time. Yeah, do you really think that's going to go well for the customer? No. At least for those of us with half a brain. This is part of the reason why government is so inefficient, is so horrible. We have got to rein this behemoth in. Okay? Now, we as the electorate, gave Congress and the presidency, we were like, hey, look, we want you to fix government. And we gave it to them. We kept the House, we gave them the Senate, and we gave them the White House. And now those Republican politicians, every single one of them, need to wake up and smell the coffee and realize It's this kind of crap that the American people are no longer interested in continuing. Folks, we need this stuff to essentially go the hell away. You folks, you need to understand that we elected you to do a job, and that is to rein in the federal government. We have a $36 trillion debt that needs to be taken care of, and we don't have the taxes to pay for it. And the Democrats' pie-in-the-sky idea is like, oh, tax the rich. Tax the rich. The rich are going to take care of it. No, they're not. No, they're not. Jeez. Oh, so now the question is, if this CR passes, okay, that'll fund the government at least into March. And at that point, it's questionable as to whether or not the spending bills that were currently sitting, those 12 spending bills that were currently sitting to get passed by this Congress, are going to be able to get reworked or not. Now, here's the thing. The Democrats, I think, did this on purpose. In fact, I honestly think that this is to their advantage, to be honest with you. So we're in a lame duck period. Lame duck meaning you have lame duck Biden, the president, or the president in name only, the Pino. Okay. Right now, Democrats have no incentive to deal with any of the Republicans in order to try and strip out any of this stuff. Okay. And so this is, according to their thought process, too, by the way, is that the Democrats, this is their last chance to protect any of their priorities, such as that environmental protections that I alluded to earlier. They are trying their best to make sure that their priorities are protected until at least 2027. And they're taking full advantage of this, because what happens if the government, okay, decides to shut down? Well, that gives them political ammunition to go after the Republicans, to basically say, hey, the Republicans, they're not interested in you. They're not interested in any of this. They're not interested in protecting the middle class. Yeah, that's part of their shtick. And that's why they're sitting here going, hey, they either pass this thing, which has all of our bloated pork in the thing, maybe not all of it, but a lot of bloated pork in it, and they basically screw themselves that way, or they shut down the government, which, by the way, that's what they should do, but they shut down the government and take the political hit from the American people. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, suggested as much on X. He said, House Republicans have been ordered to shut down the government and hurt the working class Americans they claim to support. You break the bipartisan agreement, you own the consequences that follow. Yeah. So anyway, as an additional shot across the bow, okay, folks, for this continuing resolution, we also have apparently hidden in the bill a couple of things. One, a cost of living allowance raise for Congress. Yes, that's right. It's a cost of living adjustment, COLA, which is going to take effect And here, let me just tell you, there's a difference between the two. There's the Senate one, which they blocked the COLA adjustment, and the House GOP version does not block this. So a COLA essentially is a pay raise. It is designed to combat things like, oh my gosh, the cost of living, which is influenced to holy hell by inflation. Yes, inflation that the Democrats and especially Kamala Harris went ahead and passed the bill that brought all of this on. So now Congress is attempting to try and bring this to the point where, hey, you know what? All this stuff that we've been dealing with, all this inflation, these prices, price raises and stuff, you know what? We're going to take care of that. We're going to slide in this cost of living adjustment. Yeah. That's what they're going to do, is they're going to do that. Now, what they also don't tell you, by the way, is that Congress has already passed a quote-unquote pay raise in the form of allowing congressional members to write off things like, oh, I don't know, housing to the tune of like $34,000 in a year for young, new Congress people and senators? Wait, what? That's right. Back in a 2022 lame duck spending bill, Congress snuck in a provision to allow reimbursement of a number of living expenses, including lodging, food, and travel while on the job in Washington, D.C. And this is, by the way, according to the New York Times, through Breitbart, individual members could be reimbursed up to $34,000 in their first year for that. Now, most members of Congress, their first year, make $174,000 annually. And then some in leadership positions receive a little bit higher salaries, by the way. The Speaker of the House, okay, according to New York Times, receives $223,500, while the Senate President pro tempore receives $193,400. Now, with the provision blocking pay raises stripped, lawmakers will receive an annual adjustment in pay equal to the change in the government's employee cost index for the fourth quarter of the prior calendar year versus the year before that. And that adjustment will be made each year until Congress again blocks its pay raise. So the House is expected to vote on this CR that allows them to, bump this up, this cost of living adjustment, okay, no later than Friday. And it must pass the Senate before it goes to Biden's desk. Folks, they're voting themselves in a pay raise. That's what they're doing. I just can't. Oh my gosh. So, and it also, too, the lame duck CR also stripped a provision included in spending bills since 2009, which is to block automatic raises for Congress. Yeah. So, in other words, the people who control the money have decided that they want to strip a provision regarding spending bills that's been in place since, the Obama years, that blocks automatic raises in order to give themselves a cost of living adjustment, in order to give themselves a pay increase. Whoa, what? What? This is part of the problem. This is why I don't think they should be allowed to vote on their own freaking pay raises. That's like me walking into my boss's office and saying, you know what? Hey, boss, I think I did a fantastic, stellar job this year. So guess what? I want you to pay me 20% more than what you're paying me this year. Oh, and by the way, you don't get a vote on it because I'm the one in charge. Really? Because in that scenario, the people who are the boss are the people. They're we, the people. And we haven't done, or we haven't, in fact, we felt that this Congress was so bad that we gave the control back to the Republicans. This is utterly ridiculous. Folks, I wish I had this kind of control. I really do. I really wish I had this kind of control over my own money. I mean, it's bad enough that government decides that, you know what, hey, we're living outside of our means, so we're just going to print more money in order to live inside our means. I mean, that's essentially what they do. And how does it impact us? Well, it impacts us in inflation. Because the minute that government prints more money, the inflation numbers start rising. Why does inflation exist? Because of the fact that the value of the individual dollar goes down every single time there is more dollars, physical dollars, out in the space that we need to buy things with. I mean, how is this not like simplistically understood, folks? If you have the ability to reach out to your congressmen and your senators, which everybody does, by the way, I highly encourage you to tell these people, do not pass this continuing resolution. It needs to go bye-bye. Well, Elon Musk, of course, and we all know that this guy is pretty damn smart. I mean, he's going to become one of the Doge directors. So Elon Musk posted on X, he says, how can this be called the continuing resolution if it includes a 40% pay increase for Congress? Now, his claim, of course, is based off of Wall Street Mav's analysis of the provisions. The pay increase for members of Congress, of course, goes from $174,000 up to $243,000 per year. Now, remember, folks, that's the base pay. If I were elected in 2024, that would be my salary heading off to Congress in 2025. That it would be from $174,000, I would be making $243,000. Now, here's the thing. There is a provision in the Constitution that basically states that the president is the highest paid individual in government. Okay? And by the way, that's why back during the Clinton years, that Clinton went from making something like $250,000 at $250,000 or something like that, up to $400,000 per year, because of the fact that Congress had to raise that limit since Teddy Kennedy was running into the possibility of hitting the same or trying to get above the limit in Congress at the time. And so Congress said, well, shoot, one of our own members is about ready to top the salary chart. So let's go ahead and raise the president's salary. So now we have more wiggle room and we can add more money to it. Do you see the problem that we have with all of this? I would have to say, first of all, considering the fact that the founders never, ever, ever envisioned public service to be a freaking career. They'd be rolling over in their graves right now, knowing that we have people who have served 40 and 50 years in Congress. It was designed and intended that you would work on your outside job. You would then go off and do your public service for maybe 1 or 2 terms, potentially, and then return back home to your job or to your lands. That's what it is. Anyway, he also pointed out, too, and this is another one. So this is Musk talking about this. He says 2 provisions that directly impact lawmakers were quietly added to the CR. And we've already talked about the pay raise. There is an Obamacare opt-out. Yes, folks. There was an original, there is an original law provision that under the Affordable Care Act, lawmakers and subdesignated staff are required to use an Obamacare exchange instead of what's called the Federal Employees Health Benefits Program. And now, with this CR, if it passes in its entirety, there is a provision that allows lawmakers, those same lawmakers, to opt out of Obamacare. Now, folks, there is a provision within the Constitution, and I'm not going to try and find it because I don't recall directly off the top of my head where it is. But there is a provision within the Constitution that basically states that there is no law, there is no that Congress cannot make a law that doesn't apply to themselves. This directly is exempting them from this law. Obamacare is against the Constitution. It's not one of the specific items, and under the 10th Amendment means that it should go to the states. Okay, but Congress has been doing this because of the lack of understanding and knowledge of the American people over and over and over again. They continually exempt themselves out of laws. Again, this is an out-of-control government, not only in spending, but in other things as well. And this is why Donald Trump, this is one of the major reasons why Donald Trump was elected and needs to get in and go full-on bull in the china shop and destroy the entire thing and rebuild it back the way it was supposed to be done, the way the founders intended. Small, limited, and controlled. We do not have that in today's day and age. I can't believe these things. I mean, this is supposed to be basically like, hey, we screwed up. We didn't do our jobs. We're just going to continue or extend existing funding for 2 or 3 months. But no. The bipartisan, quote unquote, side of the House, the House in particular, side of the House has decided that, no, we're going to slip in a bunch of other things. This is why bills should be passed that are single issue only. There should be, and I think that this should be a constitutional amendment that basically states that Congress can only pass laws that are pertaining to one singular issue, and that's it. And this is part of the reason why I have said to most people, or to you guys especially, but this is why I've said, if I ever became president, I would literally tell Congress, I will veto any bill that comes across my desk that has more than one issue attached with it. If you can't tell me very quickly, very succinctly, what this thing is doing and why, I'm vetoing the damn thing. Now, that only works if I don't end up, if I were president, of course, if I don't end up with a veto-proof majority, which we don't have right now in terms of that kind of a situation, and we won't have when Donald Trump comes in. So Trump could essentially utilize his veto power and basically tell Congress, hey, look, folks, if you can't make a bill that is single issue only, I'm not signing it. And stop this omnibus bullcrap for good under his term. It's these kinds of things, these kind of cojones type things that need to occur in order to rein in this Congress, to rein in this federal government that has grown way outside its constitutional boundaries. And I can only hope that Donald Trump has those cojones to do so. Now, here's another thing that the government has been spending crap on, all right, that they shouldn't have. And this is another reason why we are $36 trillion in debt. Sorry, that was an echo. Anyway, here's a good reason. This in hot air. The Biden admin apparently sent $300 million to Reuters, a non-governmental organization, a press organization, to, quote, look into Musk and his companies. Are you freaking kidding me? The federal government spent $300 million for a press organization to look into Musk and his companies? Yep. That's apparently the case. So the Biden administration, according to the X account Unusual Whales, essentially broke down, and Mike Benz also broke this down too, that there were 11 different Biden government agencies that all targeted Elon's businesses, and all 11 agencies paid millions to Reuters, of all places. Reuters, of course, then won the Pulitzer Prize for their work on Elon Musk and the misconduct of his businesses. Yeah. Wait. Hold on. I missed something. Becky, did I miss something? You said thanks for answering my question. What was the question? I might have inadvertently done it, but you're right. I could have missed it. I'm sorry. I was trying to watch the chat at the same time while I was ranting, but I kind of got distracted there. Anyway, remind me. What's the question? Okay. So anyway, back to this. So Reuters apparently was paid a lot of money from different government organizations in order to look into Elon Musk. And it's on an official accounting document called USA Spending. Reuters, between its newswire services, according to Mike Benz, and its network intelligence services and its data services, has received over $1.56 billion in U.S. government contracts. Wait, the press? Oh, wait, hold on. I thought the press was supposed to be, I thought that the press was supposed to be like the fourth wall to prevent government from getting out of hand. Oh, no. The press is the mainstream media. The mainstream media is sycophantic propagandists for these folks. Jeez. I can't. I just can't. If people sit here and wonder all the time and wonder where all of our money goes, where does all of our tax money goes? We pull in, by the way, the government, let me rephrase, pulls in roughly $4 trillion this last tax cycle. Okay, think about that for a second. They pull in revenues $4 trillion. And we are, what? Let's see. 4, if you multiply it, 48, so then 44, 40 would be 10. 987. I mean, how many multiple times of what we pull in is what we're in debt? Seriously? Folks, we got to fix something. And that's what Donald Trump was hired for. That's what Donald Trump was hired for. I cannot believe this government and how much it's... Yep. And to even think that Reuters is like now, basically because they're getting paid by the government, to even think that Reuters is a independent outlet, yeah. I don't think that's the case. Yeah. Ay. Oh, I can't do this. I just can't. Well, folks, let me take a quick break here. Let me tell you about these wonderful shirts that I wear on almost every single episode. They come from a place called theflagshirt.com. That's theflagshirt, all one word, .com. And right now, they're not running any specials other than their standard one, which is if you purchase $75 or more of their product, they will give you free shipping. But I understand. I totally get it. If you can't spend $75 or more in order to get that free shipping. So I'm going to help you out. I'm going to help you out by sending you to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. And when you go to that web address, you will be presented with a coupon code that you can copy and paste into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com and get yourself $5 off your order on American Perspective, basically on me. Go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online, grab that coupon code and enter it, and copy and paste, really pretty simple, into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com and get yourself $5 off of your order. Go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized, like me. All right, folks. Well, the feds aren't done yet with quietly doing things, okay? Without quietly doing things, they are trying to slip stuff through. Well, guess what? The FDA, through a regulation, went ahead and quietly banned liability for vax makers so that Trump can't go after them. Oh, you think I'm lying? Here it is. Just the news. Feds quietly banned liability for vax makers through Trump's full term as FDA exposes an RSV trial harm. So here's what happened. So the federal government, of course, remember with COVID, the federal government protected the manufacturers of COVID-19 and flu vaccines from product liability originally. Well, they've now just extended that product liability for another 5 years. And that's on the cusp of the new administration, which, of course, RFK Jr. is coming in, who is going to who is essentially purported to aggressively look for vaccine injuries and release hidden books. Just the News went to court to obtain those hidden books. Well, as they say, you didn't hear about it? Of course you didn't hear about it. Why would the government do anything that would allow the people to actually hear of stuff like this? Well, the Department of Health and Human Services does not appear to have told the public, outside of a December 11th Federal Register notice, which is primarily read by regulatory agencies, and a generic web page that is buried deep within the HHS's website. Yeah, they're trying to slide it by you, folks. You think this government is transparent or on the up and up? Of course not. So outgoing agency secretary Javier Becerra, or Becerra, however you want to pronounce it, Beccerra, his amendment to the declaration under the Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act for COVID-19 medical countermeasures, enacted 19 months after President Joe Biden formally ended the COVID public health emergency, provides a perfunctory explanation for the liability shield's continuing necessity. He says, and I quote, "I have determined that there is a credible risk that COVID-19 may in the future constitute such an emergency." It's a 27-page notice written in his voice, dated December 6th. And much of it is rehashing previous amendments and requirements for, quote, covered persons. He also says, "Congress delegated to me the authority to strike the appropriate federal-state balance with respect to covered countermeasures through the PrEP Act declaration." Okay, now he also continues on, and the PrEP Act questions and answer page says that the 12th Amendment generally extends the protections clarified in the 11th Amendment from May 2023, which ended some liability provisions and was set to expire on December 31st through 2029. Really? So apparently now, too, the extension is also going to cover COVID therapeutics administered in any of these ways, subcutaneously, intramuscularly, or orally. And an example of this is Pfizer's rebound-prone antiviral Paxlovid, whose efficacy, by Pfizer's own damn research, is questionable. So they're protecting Pfizer and other medical manufacturers. Seriously? Seriously. A section near the end of that notice also provides for an additional 12 months of liability protection to allow for the manufacturers to arrange for the distribution of the disposition of the covered countermeasure, implying that the shield against them or for them will last the entire decade. The December 11th notice gives no explanation for the lengthy duration of the extension, 3 times longer than the previous amendment period, by the way. And it was published simply a month after President-elect Donald Trump's victory. It covers the entirety of his pending administration. Yeah. So, according to one observer who's noted the interesting timing, Pfizer's combination flu COVID vaccine was supposed to finish phase 3 clinical trials last month, but failed, an important benchmark this past summer. The pseudo-anonymous user wrote, Pfizer would have to go through the normal licensing and approval process with the Food and Drug Administration and possibly lose legal immunity going forward. This government is so out of freaking control, folks. They just are. They just are. Now, HHS has yet to answer Just the News queries starting Wednesday morning on how the public could find the notice without directly visiting the ASPR's PrEP Act page or stumbling across it in the Federal Register. For those of you that don't know, okay, the government has to inform the public whenever it does something like this. Yeah. Yep. So hat tip to lawyer Tom Renz. He's the one who spotted it at 1 a.m. on December 11th. And by that afternoon, by the University of Minnesota's Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy, which was led by White House COVID advisor Michael Osterholm. That's when it was spotted. Yeah. Representative Chip Roy from Texas wrote on X, we must reverse this nonsense and, more importantly, pass significant reforms to such liability provisions. An Oregon naturopath, Henry Ely, who is with the Beaverton state lawmakers, sought a federal grand jury investigation into COVID statistical manipulation. He wrote, we live in a crime scene. Yeah. Renz suspects that that's the lawyer, Tom Renz, suspects that the liability shield extension is related to Becerra's presumptive successor, R.F. Kennedy, his expected release of information against the vaccine's safety and efficacy and subsequent litigations, assuming the Senate confirms the nation's leading vaccine skeptic. Yeah. So all of this, of course, is part of the Biden administration's attempts to immunize the federal government from the incoming Trump administration and all of the changes that the Trump administration is potentially attempting to get accomplished. Yeah. All this underhandedness is occurring all because of Biden's watch. Oh, and by the way, speaking of Biden's watch, do you remember, I seem to recall there was a person back in 2015 that, or maybe even earlier than that, 2014, 2015, who was a presidential nominee. Let me think. Who is that person? Oh, yes, the Wicked Witch of the Central Arkansas state. That essentially had her own private email server and was, gaining classified or reading classified information on this unsecured server. And by the way, that server was, according to some experts in the government, had been accessed by foreign entities. And I seem to recall that she had that private server that was hacked. Don't you think that the Democrats would have learned by now? Yeah. No, because Democrats, especially the ones in government, are completely stupid. This in Just the News. Biden advisors used insecure, pseudonymous email accounts to brief him on sensitive foreign policy. Do you remember that whole story that we had with regards to Biden and him having like different email accounts? One of them being, and of course, all of this is based off of the private accounts that were shown on the Hunter Biden laptop. Okay. He was using an email address with a pseudonym to communicate with business and also apparently official matters. So one of the new emails that was released by the National Archives show then Vice President Biden, he was briefed about sensitive foreign policy matters by none other than his then advisor, Antony Blinken, on his private email account, including apparently details about a failed North Korean missile launch. Yeah. So one new email, part of the several batches that were released by the National Archives pursuant to a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, shows that in the hour following a North Korean missile launch in April of 2012, Blinken, who was then VP Biden's national security advisor, sent a message to the vice president's private email account, robinware456@gmail.com. Oh my God. With details about the sensitive national security matter. Really? Blinken wrote, quote, "Just in case you missed it, the North Korean rocket failed somewhere between first and second stages. Will take some time to determine why." He now serves as Secretary of State, by the way. And he signed that same email message as Tony. Now, here in the article, in Just the News, they have the freaking email. Yeah. The launch itself marked a provocative escalation during a time of leadership transition in the communist dictatorship as Kim Jong-un was assuming powers from his father, who had died the preceding December. One day after the email, North Korea confirmed that the rocket launch had indeed failed. Now, Blinken reportedly followed up on his first email 2 days later with more updates, presumably. And the contents of that communication were redacted by the National Archives under what's called the P5 exemption, which excludes information from FOIA requests that, quote, would disclose confidential advice between the president and his advisors or between such advisors. He's using a freaking private email server that, by the way, is a public one. It's on Gmail. Hello? Oh, my God. Oh, we are being led by complete, utter morons. We are. We just are. And we allowed it to happen. So, apparently, according to Just the News reporting 3 years ago, it revealed that Biden used at least 3 different pseudonym private email accounts when he was Barack Obama's vice president. In the court filing last October, NARA disclosed that it had located 82,000 pages of emails that Biden sent or received on 3 email accounts using fake names. For those of you that don't know, that dwarfs the number that was involved in the Hillary Clinton aforementioned email scandal. If you think that our federal government is playing on the up and up, folks, yeah, you're wrong. You're just wrong. You're straight up wrong. Come on. Private email servers, so on and so forth. I don't get it. I just don't get it. How people can actually think that the federal government is operating within its boundaries, its proper boundaries, okay, and it's not, and how they think that how can anybody trust anything the government does? None of these, I mean, none of this is, it should be surprising to anybody who is a staunch, understanding individual of the effects of the government. All of this stuff is being exposed. It's coming out in the public eye. And I don't know, do you trust your government? Do you trust the CIA? Do you trust the FBI? Do you trust the DOJ? The answer to that should all come back as a solid no, if nothing else. Not even with the new administration coming in should we necessarily trust it. And I hate saying that, but Donald Trump, his mandate is supposed to come, which has come, from the American people to clean all this bull crap up. And until it's cleaned up, there is absolutely no reason why anyone should assume that the federal government is operating above board. Period. Period. Oh, Becky. Person after my own heart for sure. Becky says on Facebook, make punishment for treason great again. I like it. Oh, yeah, I'm being requested by my wonderful people here to do Pet of the Week. I was hit up by Bam first. Pet of the Week. Unfortunately, there isn't a submission for this week. So unfortunately, Pet of the Week is out. I hate it when that happens because it's such a fantastic segment. Oh, I'm cheating on you guys? Yeah, okay. I'm cheating on you guys, sure. All right. Well, one last thing before I head off into the ethosphere. The Fed apparently has also, the Fed has also decided to cut interest rates by 1/4 point. And at the same time, they are also signaling that there's going to be fewer cuts next year. So the Federal Reserve, this according to the Epoch Times, the Federal Reserve expects fewer interest rate cuts in 2025 as inflation pressures weigh on monetary policy. So the Federal Reserve followed through on the third straight interest rate cut on December 18th, that's today, lowering the benchmark rate by 25 basis points. For those of you that don't understand this, that's a 0.25% cut, 1/4 point. And it basically sets the range between 4.25% and 4.5% at the December policy meeting. It also stated that it expects fewer interest rate cuts in 2025 so that inflation pressures weigh on monetary policy. Wait a minute, I thought we were coming out of that. Okay. I thought we were coming out of that. Yeah, not happening. So investors had overwhelmingly expected that the central bank was going to cut interest rates. It says here, recent indicators suggest that economic activity has continued to expand at a solid pace. Since earlier in the year, the labor market conditions have generally eased and the unemployment rate has moved up, but remains low. So inflation has made progress toward the committee's 2% objective, but remains somewhat elevated. Wait, I thought we were in a good situation with this. Hold on. Really? So here's the deal. Inflation, for those of you that don't know, as long as inflation is positive, it's constantly raising rates. Now, 2% of a raise year over year is baked into the cake. Okay. So anyway, Cleveland Fed President Beth Hammack was the lone dissenting vote, preferring no rate cut this month. So the post-meeting statement was changed very little, although the language was altered to extent and timing regarding the interest rate decisions. Financial markets were more focused on updates to the Summary of Economic Projections, which is a quarterly survey of policy and economic activity expectations in the coming year. Policymakers expected 2 half-point rate cuts in 2025, signaling a more conservative approach to loosening monetary policy. They also forecast another 50 basis points worth of rate cuts in 2026. The median policy rate is projected to be 3.125% in the next 3 years. The Fed projects that the broader economy's real gross domestic product growth rate to be 2.5% this year, which is up from the September estimate of 2%. Officials forecast the economy to grow by 2.1% in 2025, 2% in 2026, and 1.9% in 2027. So all of this, of course, is going to make a difference when it comes to when Donald Trump gets into office and does some of the things that he does in order to try and fix a lot of this stuff. Now, data is currently suggesting that the economy could be enduring sticky inflation heading into 2025. Indeed, inflation itself has steadily risen since the Fed kicked off its easing cycle in September with that jumbo half-point rate cut. So they cut the rate in September. Inflation is still going up, albeit at a slower rate, but still going up. And yet, yeah. So the annual inflation rate ticked up for the second straight month in November, touching a 4-month high of 2.7%. And looking ahead to the next Consumer Price Index report, the Cleveland Fed is forecasting a 2.9% reading. Folks, every time they cut the rate, the interest rate, the inflation ticks up a little bit. That's the way this works. Yeah. So, don't expect things to necessarily change that quickly. Let's just put it that way. Hopefully, with Donald Trump opening up the energy sector, all of that is going to change. However, if we stay the way that we are right now, it's probably not going to be much of a change. So in a reaction to that policy meeting, the tech-heavy NASDAQ Composite Index declined, plunging 3.5%. The blue-chip Dow Jones slumped 2.6%, and the S&P 500 dropped roughly 3%. Yeah. Longer-term U.S. Treasury yields rocketed, with a benchmark 10-year yield surging to 4.3%, 20 and 30-year yields advanced to 4.8% and 4.68%, respectively. And the U.S. dollar index, which is a gauge of the dollar against weighted basket of different currencies, soared to $108. The index is up about 6% this year. So, there you go. Anyway, so the government is hiding stuff. The Fed is trying to keep interest rates, inflation a little bit higher. And, yeah, there you go. Hopefully all of this stuff gets fixed in the next 2 years. Seriously. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. And yes, I do have a question for Saturday already on the docket, which is fantastic. So do me a favor. If you want a pet of the week next week, you got to send it in. Next week. Hold on. Next week, Wednesday, is Christmas. And then the following one is New Year's Day, which I will be taking off. So you can get a pet of the week in for 3 weeks from now. If you want. You got 3 weeks to find a pet of the week. All right? So there we go. All right, folks. If you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com. Get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure you search up the American Perspective channel. and click that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Also, too, don't forget to hit those thumbs up and like buttons across all of my platforms, whether it's X, Facebook, YouTube, and the aforementioned Rumble, to make sure that my videos get elevated and expanded to a much wider audience. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on the American Perspective show. And have a great rest of your evening. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.